Greetings CS211ers, this is Professor Kaufman, and this video is designed to help you get through Lab 1 in the event of snow emergencies, which we happen to be having during Spring 16 at the very moment. So what we'll need to do in this lab is to get it set up with DrJava and to download all the lab materials, compute our first program, compile it, test it, make sure it runs, and then submit it to Blackboard. Should be no sweat. Should take us about 30 minutes or so together. So, I'll batten down the hatches and let's get cracking. This video presumes that you've already installed the JDK. If that's not the case, the Java Development Kit must be installed, and you won't be able to get very far without it. So have a look at the web page associated with this video. There should be links to some YouTube videos that should help you to get either on Windows 10 or associated Windows platforms or OS X the JDK installed, so you have access to the Java-C and Java commands on the command line. We'll get to that again in a little bit, but make sure you've done that prior to this. So first things first, let us get DrJava so that we can work with a sensible IDE that's lightweight and fun to use to boot. All the class materials associated with CS211 are on our Piazza site. Frequent attendee, so Google's already auto-completing for me. You see a bunch of posts over here. When you have questions about the lab or project or anything else, make sure to click New Post, select a question, and get to it. But for the moment, we're more interested in the class resources, which are up here at Resources. Down in the lower left, and this will be a one-time op, so it's down at the bottom, you'll want to grab the DrJava GMU edition of stuff. So clicking on that should open a new window. Here's the DrJava page associated with our particular version of it. Up top is the drjava.jar file. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to put it, just for the moment, on my desktop, because that's a convenient place to use it, and you'll probably be using it a lot in class. This is a self-executing program, so having it around is not too bad. Chrome's been a little finicky with me lately, and doesn't, for some reason, want to stop downloading after a while. But when you're sort of confident all has been downloaded all right, don't want to show you that. Instead, I want to go over to my desktop, and here's that drjava.jar file. Keep it someplace safe, and when you want to run it, double-click. If that doesn't work, to show the splash screen and eventually open up DrJava, you'll want to come to an office hours, potentially with me, Professor Kaufman, Tuesdays and Thursdays. No, sorry, just Tuesdays, 3:30 to 5:30. And we can try and help you diagnose why DrJava is starting up. When it does start up, it looks something like this, although I've customized my fonts somewhat, so it may not look exactly like this in your case. One thing you'll all want to do is to turn on the line numbers. To do so, come up to Edit, and then down here, Preferences. And this is an option that is buried under Display Options, this unobtrusive Show All Line Numbers. Make sure that it is checked, press OK, and these guys should show up. It can make it a little bit easier to find errors from the compiler, because they usually give a line number, and it's much easier then to be able to see those line numbers. Okay, we're ready to get cracking now on the actual lab, now that we have an IDE. We'll also explore use of the command line later, get rid of that little download thing down there, but we're done with you for the moment. There are instructions down here. If you cannot double-click on DrJava, instructions down here to run it from the command line, which should work in a pinch, but you'll be using it a lot, so it'll probably be worth your while to resolve how do I start it quickly and get to work fast. So all the other materials associated with the class, a little bit higher up, and since we're working on labs, that'll be under the lab materials link. Click here. And the only lab that's posted right now is Lab 1, and that's fine. That's what we're interested in at the moment. You'll want to have a look at the lab manual from time to time. There are instructions there to set up your environment as well that complement this video somewhat. There are also quite a bit of material in there on things that might go wrong that we'll probably breeze through here. So have a look. Make sure to do the reading associated with each lab prior to attempting it. In addition to the lab manual, Chapter 1, you'll want to have a look at associated stuff in building Java programs from Chapter 1. That's our course textbook, in case you didn't know. Okay, each lab will probably have some code associated with it that is provided to you. This is usually linked up top from the distribution part. And as mentioned down here is I make sure to get that stuff. So up top up here, I'm going to click on this guy. And I'm going to download it somewhere. Okay, we'll put it on the desktop for the moment. But that's not where it's going to stay. I'm going to buzz back over to my desktop. And this is there's going to be quite a bit of material associated with CS211, so it's going to be in your interest to organize a little bit. I'll do so by making a new folder, calling it CS211. I'm going to drag this guy in there right off the bat. Double click to open up that folder, and in order to extract the contents of this zip, note that if I double click I can go inside of it, but eventually I'll be disappointed because I can't actually change anything in there. I want to extract everything from it first. This is a zipped compressed file and we want the raw stuff inside. So I'll right click, select extract all on Windows. I don't need it to go any deeper than it already is, so I'm going to knock this out. It's going to extract all the files into CS211. Press extract all. We'll do this little business here. I don't need this extra window. You should see something that looks like this guy, where this is the folder that was inside the zip that's been extracted, and you can see some stuff in here. A typical pattern here, I'm going to go one back up here, is I'm going to need to submit something eventually that has my net ID associated with it. I'm going to just change the name of this guy to ckaufman2. That's the first part of my GMU official email address, and you should have your own official GMU email address. Change the folder to match whatever that happens to be. Okay, we've got ourselves a lab folder. Eventually we're going to zip that guy up, but we don't need this thing anymore. I'm going to delete it, put it in the trash, and we'll probably never look at it again and get thrown out as useless bits. Back over to the lab. Down here, we'll get rid of this little guy. Down here, I'm going to scan down to the first problem. So this is the canonical Hello World program in a class named Hello Lab. And our first objective is to get this up and running so that we can compile it and see what it prints out. You can probably bet it's going to print out Hello Lab. In DrJava, it will make sense to sort of move this guy over here, and then grab DrJava and move him over here. Okay, so I can see both things at once. DrJava, to get a file sort of up and running to compile, just need to grab this text, do a little Control-C to copy it, and then a Control-V to paste it. And now I have some stuff that is worth compiling. Before compiling, you usually want to save. There's a little save button up here. There's also your standard shortcuts like Control-S to save. When saving, I'm going to move this into my CS211, into my lab folder. You can see down here, DrJava has suggested a name, Hello Lab. It'll automatically append the .java onto that. And that name corresponds to the public class that appears in the file. Java has a few rules about how you name things. If there is a public class in your file, the file has to be named after that public class, and we'll adhere to that rule within this context. There might be some exceptions, but for the moment, one class per file, as it were. Okay, I'll press save. And things look like they saved successfully. If you make changes to this, for instance, I'll space this guy over, you can see a little star appears here to indicate that I've made changes, but I haven't saved the file yet. So I'll press Control-S to save that again, all is well. If you make some changes, and then what we want to do at this point is compile, DrJava will usually warn you about saving. I've turned that option off to say always save it before compiling. You'll probably want to do that too, because little pop-up windows end up being irritating. So anyway, after pressing the compile button, you can see a compilation complete down here. I'm going to pull up that lab folder that I created over here. You notice the files here that I downloaded. You also notice a hellolab.java, that's the file I'm working on, but a few other interesting things. First, there's a hellolab.java with a tilde behind it. This is an autosave file that DrJava will automatically create. Every so often, it will write something into this backup file, so that in the event that you completely clobber something, there's a slightly older version available so that you can potentially recover from bad instances. The other interesting thing here is a .class file. This is the result of a compilation in Java. So after you run this hello lab.java file through the compiler, and we'll have a look at that in more detail in a second, this .class file is produced. It's a binary file. You can see it's significantly smaller, only 527 bytes compared to 116 bytes. Okay, not significantly smaller, it's actually larger, but that isn't always the case. But it's a binary file, so it's not going to be human readable anymore. We'll mostly spend our time looking at these .java files. One other note, if you cannot see the extensions on files, the .classes, the .javas, the tildes, the jars, etc., figure out how to turn that on your operating system of choice. Most of you are in an area that involves computing, and seeing those extensions is important. Everyday users might not need to be able to see what file extension, the dot part, is associated with files, but you guys will need to. It will save you lots of headaches as you go on. Okay, with that done, I'm ready to actually run this program. I can press the run button up here in DrJava, and you'll see down at the bottom some action happen in something called the interactions pane. This will be our great friend, the interaction pane. You can see upon running the Hello Lab class, the following green message was printed out. Green just because DrJava's convention is to put output down here in the green color, and the fantastic message that was printed was Hello Lab. Change around that, say things like hello stupid instead. If I compile, lose my little interactions pane, it'll have been reset, and then run this thing again, but you see hello stupid instead. Now, you can play around in this interactions pane, and it keeps track of history. So if you click here to get the cursor down there, and then press up, you can recall the previous history element. It's its own little command prompt. You do this again and run hello. The alternative to this is to say Java hello lab. It'll do the same thing. That'll be important because it's very similar to what the actual command line runs as. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Let's come back to the lab and see what our next steps are. Over here says that we should play around with this on the proper command line as well. So the interactions pane of DrJava isn't always going to be there, but on every system there's always some sort of command prompt that you can get. On Windows you can access this by clicking this little Windows guy down here or pressing the Windows key next to the Alt button usually with your left hand, and then just start typing the letters CMD, which should pull up the command prompt. Yours may look a little bit different in terms of fonts again than mine, but this is a somewhat low-level interface to manipulate things on the computer. All the facilities you have, for instance, of opening files, removing, moving, copying, changing what folder you're looking at, are present here, but they have different names. For instance, I'm starting right now in my home directory, which is under C:\users Kaufman. And if I want to look at what's in that directory, press dir, and you see a whole list of different things. I have to scroll back up to see the top of the list. Now, if I remember right, I put the CS211 folder on the desktop. So I'm going to do a CD, which is a change directory to my desktop. I'll do a dir to look in there, and lo and behold, on the desktop, I see that DrJava.jar I downloaded a minute ago. There's the CS211, another class, a catboss JPEG, which is hilarious. You should look it up. And I can also then begin going a little bit deeper here as the CS211. If you press tab at any time, let's try and complete things. Unfortunately, there's only one completion in this case, but I want to go a little bit deeper in that. So I'll put a slash, and then I can start pressing tab, and okay, never mind. Windows is stupid when it comes to that. So let's change into this guy. Have a look in here. My only sort of folder at this point is the C Kaufman Lab 01. Note that you'll probably want to make a whole bunch of folders as you move on for Project 1 and Project 2 and Lab 3 and so forth. Stay organized that way and keep one copy of your code around. Working with multiple copies is just a real pain. So last step, I'll change into this, and at this point I can actually press tab to auto-complete that, which is good. Have a look in here. Here are all those files that I was just looking at in the window thing. There's a hello-lab.class, hello-lab.java, etc. This is an equivalent view to the folder view up here. So for instance, I can clobber this .class file. And if I press dir to give a directory listing again, you'll see it's also gone over here. We're going to recreate that magic in just a minute. To do so, I'm going to type in the following. Make this ever so slightly bigger so I can see it. The command to compile in Java is javac. And actually just press enter at this point to make sure it's present. Pressing enter, I see a complaint from the Java compiler. It says you didn't give me a source file to compile. Here's a bunch of options you can add on. If you can see instead a message says something about I don't know what javac is, or command not found. You'll need to go back and figure out how to manipulate your system path so that Windows or Mac OS X or whatever it is you're running knows where the Java compiler exists. Mine, I can find out, say, where is javac, is located in a program files Java, JavaDK, bin for binary, and there's that javac executable. If you don't see anything like that listed and said no javac anywhere, you'll need to revisit some of those YouTube videos I mentioned before about getting the Java Development Kit, the JDK, set up properly. Okay, we're ready to compile. So let's, instead of just saying javac, give it a class to compile. Here's hello lab.java. Press enter at this point. Doesn't look like anything's happened, but for the carefully observant, you see over here, the compiler has recreated that .class file. Run the source through, figured out how to execute that in low-level JVM instructions, and written those in binary into this class file. To get the same effect as running, I'll say Java, and then the name of the class only. So Java Hello Lab, and you'll see printed out here that Hello Stupid that we had before. Cool. Okay. We've verified that all is well in the command line. We'll do that again in a few minutes with the other thing, but ready to move on now, I think, to the next lab problem. So pull these two things back up. Here's my DrJava. Here's my lab. We'll come back down here, have a look at the CS Wisdom problem. The purpose of this problem is to take the pattern that you see up here in Hello Lab and to create a new class that instead of printing one line, prints a whole bunch of lines. And this message from famous computer scientist Edgar Dijkstra. Read about him. He's one of the godfathers of computing. So in order to do that in DrJava, what I'll need to do is to make a new class file, a new Java source rather, and you can do that by clicking this little new star button, or connect the file in a new Java thing, or as you get faster you'll recognize a Control-N as the shortcut for that, which will pop up on a new untitled buffer over here. And since it's going to be very similar to the Hello Lab, I'm just going to grab all of this guy, copy it, and paste it in. And now I don't want it to be named the same class, so I'm going to come up here right away, change this to CS Wisdom. And just to check that all is sane, I'm going to compile at this point. Oh shoot, you know what, I forgot to save, but that's okay. DrJava is pretty smart about that stuff. If you haven't saved the file yet, it will suggest before compiling that you save it. Suggested the name CS Wisdom, that's all fine and good. So I'll press save, and that should go there. You notice the star disappear. It's no longer unsaved. Name is changed to reflect this. And I'll see down here, message compilation completed. If I press the run button, I'll see another hello stupid. That's fine and dandy, but it's not really what I want printed for this class. Instead, I want this big long message printed, so let's grab it and move it over. So copy at this point, Control-C, and most of you recognize string constants here. It's something I can overwrite, so I'll get rid of this guy and then paste this thing in and see something that looks a little funky at this point. Make DrJava take the full screen. You can see the syntax highlighting sort of trails off on the next line, and this is a clue from DrJava that something is a bit amiss about this program. The problem is that in Java you can't have multi-line string constants very easily. Instead, what I'm going to have to do is to close this guy off, end that with a semicolon, as is the pattern, and I'm going to continue this stuff over here with some successive print lines, print line, print line, print line. We'll need to have this blank line in here, as we'll see in a second. There's a print line here. Now I come back up and close all of these guys off. So be cognizant of color changes that occur in DrJava. They can be a nice hint for when things are going wrong. Okay, so I think this is looking okay so far, except that it's sort of janky looking code. In order to get this better, I'd want to indent things. As a first instinct, you come up here and you start pressing space, and then you maybe press it too many times, and you're irritated, so you have to backspace, and then you backspace too many times, and then you start throwing your hands up in the air. Before you realize, just press Tab. Tab is a brilliant feature of DrJava that will automatically indent things to the right line. For instance, if I went too far this time, normally Tab would move things over. Not in DrJava, it says you're supposed to be at a certain indent level. I'll move you there. So come down here, press Tab and Tab and Tab. Wait, what? Why did that move over? You should be over here. Tab and... oh, crap, what is wrong with this thing? This is another clue from DrJava. At the end of this line, I forgot a semicolon. Normally in Java, if you don't have a semicolon, it means this whatever this line is doing is going to continue to the next line. Semicolons end statements. So since I've forgotten one here, I'll insert it. Now if I press Tab here, we'll indent to the proper level. Notice I'm pressing Tab now, and it's not going anywhere because I forgot another semicolon up here. So I move down and press Tab again, all is well. Now, at risk of sort of belaboring this point, if you have a completely screwed up sort of indentation level, as such, it's very easy to fix it. Press Ctrl-A to select everything, press Tab, and DrJava will happily beautify everything for you. Since this is so easy, you will be penalized if you submit code that doesn't look reasonably good in terms of indentation. Learn whatever it is, whatever tool you're using, learn how to indent code properly on it and get your tool to support you. I think we're ready to go on this guy. So I'll make DrJava a little bit smaller this time, compile him, and then I'll press Run, and down here in the Interactions pane I can see, there's that message about in physics and CS being harder than physics. I don't think that's actually true necessarily, although I wouldn't say necessarily physics is harder than CS either. They're just different. So it looks like it's about the message that we're supposed to print. Let's verify that the same thing happened on the command line. Let me jump back down over here to the command prompt. I'll say Java C with the CS Wisdom class this time. So that seemed to compile fine. And CS Wisdom this time, like that. Okay, that all looks good. Now, in the event that you buggered something in your computer, in your program, for instance, forgot one of those semicolons despite DrJava's warning, you'll probably get a compile message. So upon pressing compile, you'll see an angry yellow here, expected a semicolon at the end of that. Not every error message is going to be as easy to understand and interpret as to how to fix it up as that. But for the moment, most of your problems will probably be reasonably straightforward. You need to put a semicolon in, press compile again, and we're back in business. Okay, command line was verified. The things seem to be running well in DrJava. The last part that you'll need to understand how to do is how to use the automated tests to verify that you're doing the right thing for labs. So these automated tests were provided in the file that I downloaded. If you recall, when you download things initially, there was a junit-cs211.jar. This is for running tests on the command line. And also a lab01 tests.java. This is another Java file that's provided to you. It contains tests that will be run on your lab by the TAs. They're given to you in the clear so you can verify you're getting the right answers off the bat. I'll just grab this guy and drag him over to DrJava, which should open it up. And this might be a rather intimidating looking file initially for a lot of you, because you don't know anything about print streams or byte array output streams or assertions or befores and afters and whatnot. Rest easy. You don't need to know about any of this stuff to benefit from the tests. Instead, in DrJava, what you need to know about is the test button. With this file open, I'll press the test button, and it'll ask if I want to compile this first, and certainly I do. And what you'll see upon actually running the tests is some results down here in the test output. one green, which means everything went great for that CS Wisdom test, and one red for the hello lab main function, which something must have went wrong there. This is the file that's running the tests as lab01 tests, and the overall results of one failure. I think this guy a little bit bigger so that we can see it more properly. And you'll see down here an account of what went wrong on this test. It's being run here, so I can jump up there to see, okay, up here. And there's an assertion that this string constant is supposed to be hello lab plus a new line. And whatever this thing is the result of what my main method was running. And you notice the error message here is something about hello and stupid. Okay, expected hello lab, but was hello stupid. Oh, that's right, I was screwing around and messed that up. Okay, so let me come back up here to my hello lab, change this back to from stupid to hello lab. It's sort of a, I don't know, prophetic message up there, hello stupid, because I made a stupid mistake. At any rate, compile this thing again, and I'll run the tests, and voila, all green, which is what you'll all be shooting for. All tests completed successfully. To verify that that's the case on the command line, and this is something you should all definitely do because it's what the TAs will have to do, you'll probably want to grab some code off of the lab at this point. So this last section of the lab, testing locally using JUnit, is going to outline how to do it in the command line. It's exactly what the TAs are going to be doing because there are just too many of you to grade for the tests to do it with a GUI tool like DrJava. Instead, they'll probably be using command line like this because you can scream in terms of speed there once you get good at it. So to verify, I'll want to compile everything, but since I'll be compiling those test files, we'll need to adjust where Java looks for classes to compile. Some of those assertion and whatnots that are baked into DrJava live in the CS211 JUnit file, and so you have to tell the compiler to look there when running on the command line. Easy way to do this, select that text, copy it, and then paste it in over here. Let's see, just press enter. Presuming everything is set up right, that you have the junit-cs211.jar file in that directory, should compile without errors, and then I will run this guy by copying and pasting once again. You'll see that, okay, 2 tests pass. If I'd had any failures, they'd be listed in gory detail down here. Make sure that if you are a Windows user, you're using the appropriate section that separates paths with semicolons, and if you are a Mac or Linux user, that you come up here and use the colon separator versions of that. Again, if any failures happen, you'd see a big long stack trace of what went wrong on that, along with mention that you had some failures, failures 1. So make sure that when you're submitting code that you've checked and know you're okay with the number of failures you have, and most of you will all be striving for 0 failures. Alright, the last step is to actually submit. So if I have everything there, my CS Wisdom, my hello lab.java, the JUnit and the tests, let's just check that that's the case over here in this thing. There's some extra stuff in there, but I definitely see the 2 Java files, the JUnit, and the tests, so all should be well. So I want to create a zip of this. Move up 1 directory. So here's my lab folder again. On Windows, this is buried in an esoteric menu. Right-click, go down to Send To, and press the compressed zipped folder. Sort of prompt you for a name. You can just press Enter because the default name is appropriate. This is now a compressed archive of the stuff that's in the folder. Usually takes a little bit less space than the other stuff, but it's a way to transfer multiple files in a folder at a single go as a single file, which is nice when you're submitting to some place like Blackboard. So that's our next stop. I'm going to come back over to my web browser, make him a little bit bigger, and I'm interested now in my Mason stuff. This is our Blackboard. Here's our little alert that Friday classes are closed. The university is going to be inundated with snow, so make some snowmen or something after finishing the lab and working a little bit on the project. So I want to click on CS211 here. Lab submissions. Come over here, left-hand side for labs. Lab 01. Click on the link. And now I'm ready to browse my computer to find that zip file I just made. Browse around, desktop, CS211 in my case, and here's that zip. Press open and see that, yes, this looks like it has been uploaded successfully. So at that point, I'd press submit. Since I'm a teacher, I can't actually submit assignments, so we'll leave off there. But that should be enough information for you to get through your first lab in CS211. The project is another issue, but we'll start talking about Java syntax and whatnot next week. Make sure to do some textbook reading and have a little fun this weekend before the grind begins in earnest next week. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you in class. Cheers.